Hi, I'm Sharon Gregory. I'd like to take you on a tour of the Gladys City Boomtown Museum. The original Gladys City was a town that sprang up when oil was discovered at a place called Spindletop near Beaumont, Texas in 1901. In 1890, Patillo Higgins said that there was oil at Spindletop Hill. He used to entertain his Sunday school class on picnics at the hill by igniting the gases that rose from the ground. Higgins wanted to use the oil for fire in making bricks. People were doing that in the brick industry in Pennsylvania. With 3 local businessmen, Carroll, O'Brien, and Lanier, he formed the Gladys City Oil, Gas, and Manufacturing Company in 1892. They hired the Savage brothers to drill for oil at Spindletop. The Savage brothers drilled 3 times using cable tool equipment and couldn't find any oil. Along came Captain Anthony F. Lucas, a mining engineer. He hired the Hamel brothers to drill. They used rotary drilling equipment. They found oil. Not much at first, but some. Lucas was encouraged. Then it happened. On January 10th of 1901, Lucas's men struck oil. It happened suddenly and unexpectedly. Oil just gushed out of the ground, twice as high as the derrick. It was a sight to see. No one knew how to stop it. Finally, they created a device called a Christmas tree to stop the gusher. Very little of this oil was sold, and the rest just stayed on the ground in a big lake and then caught fire. But more oil came from many new wells. Thousands of people started to come to Spindletop and Beaumont. Many buildings sprang up in the midst of the oil field. Gladys City was born and the oil boom was on. Beaumont would never be the same. And with people came businesses. One of the businesses during the boom was Thomas's drugstore. The drugstore was also known as a confectionery. The drugstore sold sodas, ice cream, milkshakes, and medicine. The confectionery was a very successful business and was popular in the heat of the summer. Ice cream was a special treat for the oil field workers at Spindletop. The doctor also had his offices in the back of the store. Another successful business in Gladys City was the photo studio. At the turn of the century, photography was becoming very popular. Everyone wanted to have their picture taken, and the businessmen wanted pictures taken of their oil wells and derricks. At the museum, there is a collection of amateur and professional cameras. Some of these cameras are from the days of the oil boom. Spindletop fueled the growth of the automobile industry, and the first car arrived in Beaumont in 1903. Before then, people had to rely on wagons drawn by horses. During the oil boom, the general store was much like a supermarket. The grocer would bring in canned goods, fresh fruits and meats, eggs, milk, hardware items, household items, and everything necessary to feed or equip a household. The grocer would also cash checks, just like grocery stores do today. Some of the more interesting items of equipment found in the general store are the chick incubator, the coffee mill for grinding coffee beans, the bread box for keeping your bread fresh, paper and string for wrapping meats and cheeses, and the scale. The upstairs of the grocery was the living quarters for the grocer and his family. During the oil boom, many people flocked to Gladys City. It was common for families to rent out extra rooms to oil field workers, and this grocer did just that. The dry goods store was like a modern-day department store and was located in Beaumont. The people who lived here were like modern workers. They worked for wages, and then they bought what they needed. Notice this pair of Levi's. This was the style worn at the time of Spindletop. However, the men that worked in the oil fields had gone to a newer style, one with belts and belt loops instead of suspenders. Sewing machines had been invented in the 1850s, and by 1901 were commonplace in American homes. They were sold in this store. The Gladys City Post Office was always called the Guffey, Texas Post Office. It was named after James Guffey, who helped finance the Lucas Gusher. The word Spindletop was slang for the oil field and was not used to name the post office. At the time, there was also another small town in Texas called Gladys City. So, to avoid confusion, Guffey was chosen. There are two windows in the post office, one for money orders and the other for stamps and mail. The same person worked behind both windows, but due to post office regulations, the two functions had to be separated. In the days of the oil boom, the cost of a stamp was only 1 cent. Grinnell's Log Cabin Saloon was located in the rough part of town, called Old Spindletop. Businesses in Gladys City were not allowed to sell alcohol. This saloon was the only distributor of Pabst beer in the Beaumont area. They also sold iced tea and soda pop. Grinnell's had a driller's lunch. Every day, from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you could come to Grinnell's and have beef brisket, beans, cornbread, and a beer or two. The bar and the back bar are antique pieces from the time of the oil boom. The piano is a standard upright piano that was imported through Galveston. In small towns, the barber shop was a gathering place for men. Gladys City was no exception. In 1901, haircuts were 25 cents and shaves were 15 cents. This barber shop was one of the full tonsorial parlors where you could have a shave, a haircut, and have your teeth worked on, all by your town barber. The Blacksmith Shop, called Southern Carriage Works, was a well-established business at the time of the oil boom. At one time, it was operated by H.A. Pearlstein and later by George Christian Schultz. The blacksmith's function in the oil industry was to make and repair tools. He also repaired wagons and put shoes on horses and mules. The other equipment in the shop is for repairing wagons or for actually building entire rigs for the handling of heavy equipment in the oil fields. August Nelson and George White were the surveyors or engineers who came to Gladys City. Surveyors were very important to the people who came to a boomtown like Gladys City. You had to know exactly where your lease or your property boundaries were located. Nelson and White produced maps of the Spindletop oil field. This one, the first map of an oil field made and sold for commercial use, was made in a room much like this. I'm standing on a 64-foot oil derrick, which is a replica of the one used to drill the Lucas Gusher. It's located in the central area of Gladys City. As you can see, the derrick floor had to be very large to hold all the drilling equipment and the drillers. Today, the Spindletop oil field is still producing oil, but much less than it did during the boom years from 1901 to 1906. And there is nothing left of the original Gladys City, which is why the Gladys City Museum was built, to help you learn about the importance of Spindletop. I hope this introduction has interested you and that you'll want to learn more about this historical event. I'd like to invite you to visit Gladys City Boomtown Museum, and then you'll be able to imagine what life was really like during the great Spindletop oil boom.